Good evening and welcome to Economically Empowering Our Community. We're broadcasting live right here in Jackson, Mississippi. It's hot in Mississippi. It's hotter today than I can recall ever having been in Mississippi. And it's going to get hotter. And so when it's this hot in Mississippi, all kinds of activities start to occur. Those that stayed indoors during the day have to come outside now because it's too hot to stay in there. If your air conditioner is broke and you don't have any air conditioning in your car, the shade tree won't get it. For those of you living in the rural area, I know what you're going through. I know that you're trying to find a lake or a pond or somewhere to get into just to get away from this heat. But they say it's going to get even hotter. Now, we're broadcasting live from right here in Jackson, Mississippi, in the heart of the deep South, Mississippi, my hometown. I call it a town because it has not risen to statehood just yet by the numbers. When we look at the economic deprivation that goes on in Mississippi, we ought not call ourselves a state. And we're going to deal with some of those issues as always. But if you're watching us on YouTube or Facebook, then share this program with your friends and family, send us stars, and subscribe to the program. Don't forget our fan base over there at Twitch and TikTok and Instagram. Wherever you're getting your streaming from, you can find We Believe Digital broadcasting right there. Now, as always, my co-host for this show, Economically Empowering Our Community, is Marcus Wallace, a gentleman that has a track record. He is not a show horse, but a workhorse.
That's
That
right.
was that was his slogan on his campaign. Marcus, how have you been?
Man, it's hot, but our workhorses still gotta work. Just gotta stop and drink a little water. But we are definitely out here in this heat, continuing to hit the pavement and try to create some change here in this city, county, and state.
Marcus, economically empowering. Exactly what does that mean that we are trying to accomplish so our viewers will get a feeling for what we're trying to achieve?
Well, in order to grow, transform, move the needle, whatever you want to call it, in a city, county, state, we have to economically empower our community. And one thing that we're trying to do here at this on this podcast is we're trying to bring about change based on facts, stats, and numbers. And I feel that um, one of the biggest issues we have is we got a lot of folks that have not been educated as to what's really going on here in this state, county, and city.
Well, Marcus, we remain last in most categories in the state, and we ought to do something about that. We ought to be tired of being last. You know, people in Alabama and says, well, we still better than Mississippi. And so we ought to be tired of that by now. We got to figure out a way to come together in the state of Mississippi, and we got to economically empower the Black community.
Well, I think one of our biggest problems is I think we got an issue just period on the leadership level. Um, as again, with this heat, it brings a lot more frustration. The hotter it is, the more cars act up, people act up, and everything. And so, the last couple of weeks I've been coming in here with some frustration on my mind. But this week, I kind of saw a few things that I'm really starting to just arrive at. We got a leadership issue. Prime example, we just started the school year and we got an issue with the air conditions on the school buses. That's a leadership issue. There's no reason under the sun that any bus air condition should not be working when you had all summer to fix these units. And on top of the air condition not working, the windows won't let down. So these children, my heart really goes out to the children of JPS. I mean, children of this city and county, they just really getting a not getting a fair jib at this childhood life. No zoo, No other activities really for them to do. We catching hell getting this skating rink open where these folks have spent all this money doing this skating rink in South Jackson, and for some reason, something down at the city is stopping them from opening school buses without air conditioning. Y'all, we gotta figure this thing out. There's no reason we should be going through these things here in the in a predominantly black city. And Socrates, I always say we really can't get mad at a lot of these issues with the white folks around here, man. Some of this stuff is our fault. There's no reason air conditioning should not be working on the bus.
Well, Marcus, I agree with you. We got to assume the responsibility for fixing the problem. And if there is a problem there, we should be solving it. And so, the opportunity to lead is what, we asked for. And those of you that were given the opportunity to lead need to demonstrate that now and move the needle, make this place better than where you found it. That's always the measurement for me. Now, Marcus, as always, the engineers got scrolling there on the bottom of the screen that 5,519,862,146 were spent by the state of Mississippi for contracting services. Of that, 95.9% went to white men. 222 million of that went to white women as minorities. Only $40 million went to actual minorities. That's black folk and maybe some Asians and a few other Hispanics. $40 million out of 5.9 billion. And so those are the kind of numbers that keeps you and I having to come here each and every week saying that if we don't change this, if we don't change the economic disparity, we're never going to move this state off of the bottom.
Totally agree. I totally agree. We probably going to have an unfolding story coming up soon. I just want to let it pan out a little longer before I really just turn the heat up on it. But we should have a story coming out of MDOT soon. Of course, I know you're familiar with them when President Trump brought this DEI stuff into reality. They cut the Civil Rights Division out of MDOT, where we were certified as minority businesses. They cut that out. Well, they're trying to get it back going, but the process that they're putting before us is very heart wrenching to me. But like I said, I want to let it pan out a few more weeks or so before I really say anything. But man, it's another example of how we're getting the short end of the stick. I mean, really, to be honest with you, we should not be putting up a fight this hard to get opportunities in the state of Mississippi. There should be someone up on those levels that understands that we gotta carve out something to afford African Americans opportunities. I mean, they make up 40% of the state, so why not? But every day, guys like myself and you who are established, got a resume, got the capacity, have put in the work, we're still having to get up every day to prove that we're qualified and capable to do these projects. And somewhere that's got to stop.
It's got to stop. And Marcus, we got to stop it when we see that our own economy, when you control the politics in your area, you then control the economy. You decide where those dollars are going to be spent and how they're going to be spent and when they're going to be spent. The budget for the city of Jackson is over $300 million annually. And when you combine that with a $350 million budget at JPS and $300 million budget that on Hines County and $300 million over at the airport authority. Black folk are controlling over $1 billion that they control. And yet we don't see Black businesses growing. We don't see Black vehicles in the street delivering supplies. We don't see Black clinics. We don't see the shade tree mechanics. We the Black folk are not fixing cars. Black folk are getting poor and poor in the state of Mississippi, and specifically in the regions of the Mississippi Delta and in Jackson, Mississippi. Those two I want to focus on because we got a breakdown on where the poverty levels is in Mississippi. The statewide poverty rate for Black Mississippians is 29 to 30%, compared with about 16 to 19% for Mississippi's total population. So we double, even though we're 40% of the state, our poverty rate doubles that of our other ethnic groups, specifically white Americans in Mississippi. And so Black folk are getting poor and poor and fewer and fewer opportunities, Marcus. And so when I see out-of-state contractors working in Jackson, Mississippi, I say somebody doesn't get it.
They don't get it.
So somebody don't get it. You say the math ain't mathing.
Math is not mathing. And it's not just in our field of business or work. You know, this is in a lot of careers around here where you see the math is not mathing. But, you know, I tell you, I really believe that this next election cycle, we're going to see some real change. And I think one of the main categories that we're going to see some change in is at that board of supervisors. I saw this past week a lot of posts being made on social media where they really going at the supervisors as a whole, not just no one individual, but as a whole. They are really challenging, you know, and really raising a lot of voice as far as change on the Hines County Board of Supervisors.
Well, they should, because when you take a look at, you know, city leadership says that, and county leadership, and Jackson Public Schools leadership, when we have a facility like the Metro Center out on Highway 80 in Jackson, the largest mall that was ever in the state of Mississippi, and the second mall, the medical mall was the first mall, and then the Metro Center Mall came into existence, and now it's in total disarray. It's beyond repair in many cases because we abandoned it. Now, Mayor Harvey Johnson tried to invest in the medical center, and he entered into a contract with Black contractors to provide office space for city employees. We attempted to get Jackson Public Schools to move into the Metro Center and occupy some of the space in Hines County. We thought that they could have put a control center there where they would have the highway patrol, the service, the sheriff's department, and all our first responders there at the Metro Center. When we let that type of property decay in that corridor of our city, where Jackson has to experience its growth, then that's a failed leadership, Marcus.
Absolutely. I was telling someone earlier today, you know, we got to stop focusing on what has left or what's leaving Jackson and take what we have and see how we can bring people back to Jackson. You know, as a marketing major, that's kind of how I think. You take the zoo, for instance. I think that we always minimize the topic as it relates to the zoo. But ladies and gentlemen, I don't think you all understand the magnitude of what a real zoo could do for this city if it's located in the right place. Me personally, my opinion, the era of the zoo on Capitol Street is over. You could spend $100 million over there. I don't think people are going to go there. But if you strategically move the zoo to the right location, guess what? You'll have everybody in the state of Mississippi coming back to Jackson to the zoo, and you'll have people visiting the zoo. That's economic empowerment in my book.
That's economic empowerment. And then I'm going to go back to the Metro Center. The engineer put a picture up of the Metro Center there at one time, and it too needs to be revitalized. We need a business improvement district like we have in Fondren over on the Highway 80 corridor. That whole corridor over there needs a whole lot of work. And this mall right here is one that we should have saved. Effective leadership would have saved this mall and repurposed it into something viable for the city and not be a great eyesore like it is now. Now, you mentioned the Board of Supervisors, Marcus. The Board of Supervisors did not spend any money into the revitalization of the Metro Center. The city of Jackson did not spend any money in the revitalization of Farish Street. We don't see where our city says that we understand economics and we understand the areas that we got to focus on to make our city better.
Right.
And we just don't see it. Now, your board went and built a parking garage down in Fondren, $19 million. They saw the need to spend $19 million to create a place so white folk would have somewhere to park, but they didn't spend $1 million in the Metro Center creating the place for Black folk to have somewhere to go.
And they haven't built it yet, but they allocated $10 million for parking garage for the Western Hotel also.
Wow.
And that's my thing, with the Black leadership, the Black delegation. Nobody is raising hell about these type of things. It's okay to build a parking garage for the Fondren. It's okay to build a parking garage for the Western. I was telling you a little while ago about the new development where they're the Prado gentleman who's doing all the developments is getting ready to also do the development on fortification at the Old Y. I have no problem with those things. But what about the Black folks that make up the majority of the city? Nobody is talking about where is our piece of the pie when it comes to opportunities and development and business. Now, when you talk about repurposing, again, I'm a marketing major. I can see out of the box and I can see 50 miles down the road. There are a lot of areas and segments of the city that needs to be repurposed in order to ignite the fire in those areas. Prime example, I clearly believe, hands down, if the state JSU Stadium was built at the Metro Center, it would totally transform South and West Jackson. It would turn Highway 80 corridor into Hollywood Boulevard.
That's pretty simple strategy, Marcus. I mean, why doesn't that happen?
Because I don't think we have business men and women in these positions. Clearly, I think that's a major key. You have to have people who are business minded, who are visionaries, who can see out of the box, who can think out of the box, who's willing to go outside of Jackson to these other areas. I just wonder sometimes if the delegation has ever been down to Hattiesburg to meet with Mayor Toby and his folks to see, how the zoo is going and the developments that they're doing. You gotta leave here. You gotta go to other places and look at where they have these homeless deserts, where they getting the homeless people off these streets and creating an environment specifically for them. But the needle is not going to move if you don't have the right people navigating it.
So, Marcus, let's talk about the kinds of things that our leadership fail into control. Now, we have a major contract for parking meters downtown Jackson.
Worst decision ever made.
Worst decision
because
ever made.
I mean, why would you charge people for parking when you're trying to draw people downtown? Our downtown needs, we need attractions. We need things to draw people down there. So the little bit that we do have, why would you charge them? Think about it. When they weren't charging for parking was, downtown looked like it was full. And of course, there's a saying, fake it till you make it. Mm-hmm. So at least make our downtown look like it's busy before you start charging. Now that they've started charging, 12 noon, it looks like family hour of a funeral home.
Well,
It's
you got to be careful with that analogy. These funeral homes are pretty
well, the funeral homes are pretty packed, but it's quiet, somber, silent. Some of the family house are a few people, whatever, but it's very quiet downtown. I don't think downtown is supposed to be quiet.
Get paid to park, paid by plate, whatever that means. I guess that's your license plate on your car.
And then you got the elderly, who a lot of them are not tech savvy. They don't know how to pay for this parking, down there. Some of them may not have credit cards. It's just, I don't personally think that was a good idea. And I don't think that it's drawing enough revenue to justify doing that right now.
And the contract for managing parking was not done by a local firm from Jackson, Mississippi.
They're out of Chicago, I think.
They're out of Chicago.
We love out of town folks. We love out of town folks around here for some reason.
If you're gonna have a parking meter contract, then locally you ought to have said during your outreach sessions, you ought to say, we think we want a parking meter contract, and we would like some local team to be able to provide that service for the city. And if you guys are not thinking along those lines, 2 or 3 years from now, maybe you ought to try to put something together.
And we said that we are a show that brings facts and stats. So let's give the audience a little stats and facts. You got the water meter contract that's given to a company out of Chicago. You got the garbage contract given to a company out of New Orleans. You got the big water deal issue that you brought a gentleman in from Virginia who brought his engineering firm in here from Virginia, and 80% of his workforce is from out of town. You got the homeless consultant contract that you brought a company in from Houston. Who else? We got a lot of out of town.
Wastewater plant being run by Jacobs Engineering in
Virginia.
And then you got your drinking water plant being run again by Jacobs Engineering.
Virginia.
Out of Virginia. As you said,
somebody connected to Virginia.
Somewhere, somehow, Virginia's got it going on. And so the EPA gives Jackson $6 billion to fix his water problem after the ice storm and the water failed and back in 21, 22. And that $6 billion is not being circulated in the African-American community who pay the water bill.
Well, 600 million. 600 million. 600. Want to make sure y'all get the numbers right. 600 million.
600 million. And yet that money is not being spent in the community who pay the water bills. And Marcus, every time you look up, there is a rate increase. People are starting to complain about electric bills. I don't know if these data centers have anything to do with that, but people are starting to complain about high electric bills over the last couple of months. Also, when this $600 million gift from the federal government came in here, Marcus, did your firm do any work?
Not at all. We tried.
Did you try?
Tried. We've done all but big.
You did all of that. Did you ever call on some of the contractors that Ted Hennepin gave contracts to, like?
Sure did.
Martin and Wicker and folks like that?
Sure did. Had great meetings with them, and they were very impressed with our resume and everything, but somehow there was a breakdown somewhere.
Well, not somehow or another. Somebody's put their thumbs down. Yep. And I understand, I can't validate it because everybody's smart enough not to put it out there as to what's really going on. But you see the impact of it. Those firms that worked on the Siemens contract that were African-American were not getting any work out of Ted Hennepin and the rebuilding of the water infrastructure. But the white firms that worked along with Siemens contractor like Oracle, they're working every day. Black folk go home, white folks will come along. I don't get what that's all about, Marcus.
Let me ask you this. Do you think that we need more community involvement? I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the the community doesn't raise a lot of concern and a lot of good hell, as John Lewis, late John Lewis, used to say. Um, we need to get the community more active. We need the community more vocal, because I guess when we talk about things, it comes off as if we're whining and complaining. But if we could get the community more involved, I think it would be very helpful.
Well, Marcus, you can call it whining and complaining, but when you get 40 million out of 5 billion, then I don't know what you're supposed to do. You're supposed
to cry.
You're supposed to just sit there.
You're supposed to cry.
And times are so hard. It reminds me in 32 when a rat was sitting on an onion, eating an onion and crying. That's how hard it is out here. And it's tough out here. You get up every day before the sun comes up and you work well past sundown, 6-7 days a week, and yet to be denied an opportunity is criminal.
And you know, my heart really goes out to, especially in our field, the guys with these track hold doja notes that they got to meet every month, and the work is not plentiful and coming like it used to. My heart really goes out to those guys. You know, I thank God that, you know, we were blessed during that era when we had all those notes and things to pay. But man, I know it's some people out here really, you know, catching it, trying to make those notes every 30 days.
Man, it's catching hell out here. Yep. I mean, a tank of gas doesn't go very far out here anymore. When the price of diesel is almost $6 a gallon.
Yep.
And so it's tough out here. And if we don't get opportunities from where we pay our taxes, where we reside, if you can't win at home, then it's going to be hard to take your show on the road. I mean, exactly. and a lot of times we're treated better out of town than we are at home.
You know, I've had it different though. I've had the worst luck ever working out of town, but I have, you know, heard some good success stories of people that have done well out of town. But I haven't had the best of luck working out of town. But I am forced now to go take the show on the road because, you know, it's hard getting opportunities here. You know, we gotta we of course we have the numbers on the state, but we gotta get these numbers for the city and the county and start really hammering on the local officials, because, you know, ladies and gentlemen, I know we all of us are tired of seeing Trump's name every day, but you all got to understand that the real change is at the local level for us. We gotta make sure the right administration, local administration, and the council board members we have the folks that are really representing the African American communities. We got to have the right board of supervisors who collectively understand that change is inevitable throughout the whole county, not just their particular areas. We got to get the people with the right mindsets locally. If we got the right folks mindset locally, we can kind of fight the national problems that we're having.
So, Marcus, let's say, for example, that our local leaders say we're having difficulty finding blacks with capacity. Well, then you ought to fix that by help building capacity.
Correct.
But you can't use it as a scapegoat. Marcus, do you know how much money is being spent on janitorial supplies in Hinds County in those 4 entities that we talked about?
I do not, but I know it's probably a lot.
It is a tremendous amount of money. Let's talk to JPS for a minute. You know, let's talk to one of our economic engines. All of the floor wax that is used to polish the floors in the school buildings ought to be bought from an African-American company.
Correct.
All of the floor wax, all of the hand soap, Marcus, ought to be bought from an African-American company that's selling hand soap and dispensers. If we just did those 2 things there, we said we're going to be intentional about increasing the amount of work that we give African-American firms. If you did that, I would be able to see a black business now that would be running commercials on TV saying that we supply floor wax to the Jackson public school system. And then we got 89 other black school superintendents out in the state. 89 markers. That alone, that one entity could transform the state.
Absolutely.
And then where are you buying your toilet tissue from? If a black can't supply toilet tissue, I mean, what is it they can supply, Marcus?
Exactly.
And so we got to be intentional about how we try to build an economy in a black community. Now, we already said earlier that 29 to 30% of our people live below the poverty level compared to 16% of non-blacks in the state of Mississippi. Now, Mississippi Delta has the highest often are 30 to 40%. Black counties such as Holmes, Coahoma, LeFlore, Bolivar, and Claiborne, 40% of the African American population lives in poverty. Marcus, Mississippi is last on the economic frontier in every state. Last behind Alabama, Louisiana, we on the bottom. And why are we on the bottom? Because only $40 million of opportunity goes to black folk statewide.
Crumbs.
Statewide, one firm ought to be doing $40 million.
Exactly.
Not 40% of your total population.
Exactly.
And then we wonder why black people are complaining and they're crying about racism and systemic racism and economic deprivation and high crime rates, and we obese and we hungry and we sometimes act out of character. If you are hungry and if you don't have the ability to create an economy for yourself, you're going to turn to alternative means.
Which is even more reason why, again, we really need to put together this economic empowerment summit. Because I'm just gonna be dumbfounded and say that the legislators and the politicians and the African American politicians in the state of Mississippi, they don't know these numbers. I'm gonna blame it on the fact that they don't know. I think in my mind that they know, but once we have this summit and we make sure they know, then it won't be any excuses. But we gotta hurry up and get this summit together, because before session starts or before the up and coming political year starts, I want to make sure these folks know these numbers.
We got to get the numbers out there because, the economic conditions for our folk in the Mississippi Delta, that is just terrible. And, Mississippi at one point was the richest state in the country. I didn't make a mistake. I didn't speak out of turn.
You told me something I didn't know.
Mississippi was once the richest state in the country.
Really?
When cotton was king, and you had the King Edward Hotel and the Peabody Hotel up in Memphis, Tennessee, the boys were rolling.
Wow.
They were rolling. And so now Mississippi is last in every category, and the Mississippi Delta and black economics is the problem. So there ought to be a summit by the governor, the Speaker of the House, the Senate, Majority Leader Deborah Hosman. There ought to be a summit that says, here's the problem. We got an economic deprivation problem in our state that's holding the state back. What can we do to give folk an opportunity to elevate their standard of living? What can we do? And there are a lot of things that can be done, Marcus.
And I've promoted a lot of concerts over the years and spent a whole lot of money. And I'm here to tell you, man, I will give whatever penny I got to put this summit together. I really want to see that happen. And I hope and pray that when we do put this together, that everyone that we invite will accept the invitation. If they don't accept the invitation, then that pretty much will let us know where we stand with that particular political leader, because this is not just an African American issue. This is an issue of moving this state forward and empowering from a diversity standpoint. That's a good way to put it.
Absolutely, a good
You
way to
know,
put
empowering
it.
from a diversity standpoint. And I know firsthand, and I know you know firsthand that we have been a part of some good diversity relationships on some big projects. And I can say, and that's why I can't just totally point the finger at our Caucasian folks. There are some good Caucasian folks who own companies in this state, who are willing to form good partnerships. I think I can say that publicly, Mr. Socrates.
Well, Mark,
Because we've actually experienced that,
we
some
have
good relationships.
and there always have been good white folk. I mean, we're not denying that. I mean, good white folk would have started the NAACP in the very first place. So good white folk have always fought, but the Klan and bad white folk beat them down.
Yep.
And beat them back, and they got where they don't want to say anything. And now, we got to take out diversity out of all of our conversation.
Yep.
We got to take out Black history. You can't teach Black history in none of your schools in the state of Mississippi. And good white folk just get beat down to the point that they don't say much.
Right. And speaking of good white folks, I want to send a shout out. I saw Hibbert Neal at Bobby Rush's premiere last week, and I hadn't seen Mr. Neal in a while, but Mr. Neal owns Neal Schaefer, and I can honestly say I had a real solid, good working relationship with Neal Schaefer, and I know Mr. Neal had been ill, had some ill issues at one point, but I got a chance to see him at the premiere. So want to send a shout out to Hibbert Neal from Neal Schaefer.
Hib is a good friend of mine. We played some golf together out at the country club in Jackson. A Black man at the country club, Mark, because that had many of us been out there. But he invited me out to play golf one Saturday, and I enjoyed that time we spent together. So yeah, there are folk that have tried. There are firms that have tried, and quite frankly, I don't think they're being used enough either.
No, they're not.
You make the point often that it's not Black or white as much as it is local.
Yep.
And so if our local white firms are not being used, I understand that Kenny Stokes had a summit on housing the other day, and folk from out of town. Once again, we got folk from out of town. Like, we don't have no brains. We don't have the ability to come up with plans and strategies, and we don't have the ability to build it and do it ourselves. You mentioned the contract for garbage pickup. Why isn't Jackson picking up its own garbage? Why isn't it managing its own landfill? Why isn't it managing its own water plant? Why don't they manage their own wastewater plant?
And I went years ago. I went to New Orleans and visited. What's the garbage company called? Richards. Very impressed with his operation. But again, I asked the same question. Why is he in Mississippi? I mean, his main operation is based out of Louisiana, and that's where he should be afforded his opportunity.
Right.
His opportunities should not be afforded in Mississippi because you have business people here. That's just like years ago when I heard about attorneys having a piece of the garbage contract. Nothing personal toward the attorneys. They happen to be friends of mine, but I just don't think it's fair for attorneys to be involved in the garbage collection, which to me, that's a category that falls under construction. So we as contractors, we can't go in the courtroom and represent nobody as an attorney. So why should the attorneys be dibbling in this lane? If everybody stay in their lane, everything will work perfect. But you're taking food out of folks' mouths when you're just jumping for opportunities just because you're looking at the dollar. I could be wrong, but that's my take on it.
Marcus, I think
that's
right.
my take on it.
If the goal is to assist minority firms to grow in an area, So if you plan on growing and developing in that area, then every opportunity, the EBO department ought to identify you as a firm that works in that lane.
Right.
And so in that, when that opportunity comes, it's not going to be but 2 or 3 firms. You know, when you don't have but 2 or 3 firms with capacity, then their name's going to get called more often. I know my name gets called a lot. And so people know that I'm out here and know that the work that we've done over the years. And so, but if I offer myself up as a roofer, then somebody ought to say, hold up a minute, Garrett. Don't we have black roofing companies trying to come up? And I would say, then I need to step down. I need to back up. But if you get in a situation where there are no minority contractors in that area, like when we went into the wastewater business, there were none there. And so you don't have to worry about that. You go as hard as you can.
Well, you know, I can at least deal with that analogy and make an exception to the rule because you're a general contractor. So roofing would fall under your general contracting as a category. What I can't deal with and accept is preachers and attorneys doing construction. Now I'm going to have some words to say if Pastor so and so is down at the city fighting for an asphalt job just as hard as I am. No, your job is to save souls in this community. Get in that pulpit, and if you want to make an investment on a project, then come talk to a contractor and do that. But you being a preacher on Sunday, saving souls, collecting all this money in church, and then you over here on Monday trying to get the asphalt contract that I'm trying to get, we're going to have a problem.
We're going to have a problem.
We're going to have a problem.
We're up against a break. We've gone past our time, but we're going to go to a commercial break. We'll come back and we'll do our last segment. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Socrates Garrett ENT.com is a diversified firm specializing in recycled aggregates and crushed concrete. Socrates Garrett ENT.com's recycled materials provide the construction industry with significant economic and environmental benefits by recycling clean concrete rubble into M.Dot grade rock materials. Recycled aggregates and crushed concrete can be applied to driveways, road construction, bank protection, parking lots, general bulk fills, and more. By using Socrates Garrett ENT.com's crushed concrete products, anyone from homeowners to general contractors can help reduce landfilled concrete waste, conserve natural resources, and gain significant economic savings on materials and disposal costs. For more information, please call 601-896-0084 or visit us online at SocratesGarrettENT.com.
The Mississippi Link is an African-American female-owned newspaper with a trusted voice that is highly respected throughout the city, state, and nation. Our motto, keepers of the knowledge for people who speak the truth, since 1993. Link significantly influences the thoughts, attitudes, and buying decisions of its readers. Call us at 601-368-8481 for your advertising needs. If you would like to receive a newspaper in the mail each week, our annual subscription is only $52 per year. That is only $1 per week for you to stay informed regarding many stories that you can only get in the Mississippi Link. Sign up today at themississippiLink.com and click on Home Delivery.
Jackson, get ready for a brand new entertainment experience where fun, good vibes, and unforgettable memories all come together. Whether you're planning date night, girls' night out, birthday parties, or you just want to have a good time, we're creating the place for you. 2659 Livingston Road, across from the Medical Mall, is Snooty Fox. It's your destination for a good time.
And we're back to our viewers out there all over the world, whether you're on Twitch, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, wherever you get your streaming from, we appreciate that. So we want you to subscribe to the program, hit the notification bell, share this with your friends and family, hit the like button. It's critically important that you do that. Now, we went a little bit over in our first segment, so this is going to be a fairly short segment. We're going to kind of summarize and kind of get where we can close the program out. Marcus, we were talking about that Jackson needs to make certain that Black folk are participating in the contracts that they have that Black folks are paying taxes into.
Absolutely.
You mentioned Richards. Richards is a black firm, but he's a black firm out of Louisiana. And so what we're saying is Lee Bush, National Waste Collections, had a garbage collecting company that's been here for years and years and years with picking up garbage for the city of Jackson, the city of Kent, etc. We think that that company should have been given every opportunity. Garbage collection contracts are not bid contracts. These are professional services. That means they are weighted, like what's 20% could be minority participation, minority owned. 30% could be price, 40% could be experience. The rest of the percentage could be financial stability. And then you weigh all that and you choose the right firm. And so that was no reason that Mr. Bush shouldn't have been picking up garbage, not only for the city of Jackson, but for Hinds County and throughout the metro area. We got to do those kind of things, Marcus.
In order to move the needle, we're going to have to do those kind of things. And you know, it's almost like, you know, those commercials that they show the children in other countries who are starving and the looks that they have on their face.
Yeah.
That's really the tone of this city right now. I mean,
that's bad.
The tone of this city, you know, you could look at the when you ride in these neighborhoods and these communities, it's just, you could tell that everybody is kind of like just have given up. It's like this city has like a given up tone, and they're just content with whatever, you know, while the one side is smiling and happy. You know, they got the groundbreaking ceremony of the renovation of all the stuff that they're about to do on Lakeland Drive tomorrow in the morning, you know, and where you got the other side of the city that, you know, that's constantly crying out for, you know, to pave, just come pave a road. You know, we just continue to neglect that's, you know, the south and west side of this city, you know, and it should be about balancing, you know, you should be able to see change in every area of the city if you had politicians who really understood the meaning of balancing this thing out. You know, you should not see all these developments going on the north side of town or from downtown Jackson all the way to county line, but here's the gentleman who has invested all this money on the skating rink, and he's being delayed for all different excuses. You know, they tabled his topic or his situation yesterday because they didn't have a representative from the Planning and Development Board from Ward 5. Man, if I was the mayor of Jackson, I would have been jumping up and down yesterday. That is no reason to hold up of a person who has invested that much money into, you know, building something for the children. Come on, y'all, we got to do better than that.
We got to do better than that. And Marcus, I don't want to leave out our black preachers. I know we don't want them, in fact, bidding on paving contracts. I get that. But Marcus, they ought to have an inventory, a business directory of every member that's in their church. Marcus, they collect more money on Sundays and take all of that money down to white banks on Monday morning. And if we don't circulate the dollars back in our community, if black folk are not building churches, how many black contractors are building these churches?
Well, it sounds like we need to do 2 summits. Sounds like we need to do a summit with the politicians and a summit with the preachers.
We and summit with our elected leaders like the airport authority and JPS, and we need to do that. And the Greater Jackson Chamber of Commerce, the White Chamber, has got to be involved in understanding that you're not going to move this city forward. And Marcus, everything is being developed around Jackson.
Yep.
And Jackson is getting poorer and poorer and poorer. The donut hole is getting darker and darker and darker, Marcus. And if our leaders don't recognize that, if we don't recognize that, we see our shrinkage in our school system, in our tax base, and we're going to be in trouble if we don't recognize that and develop strategies to turn that around.
Yep.
Now, you are a contractor. You went out and bought a machine that would fill potholes. Have you been working?
Not at all. Not at all. And somebody put a 3 on Your Side did a big special this past week. This week, there's a pothole. I can't remember exactly where it's located, but it is a very dangerous pothole. And I took advantage of posting on that post, letting 3 on Your Side know that, you have 2 African American companies here in the city of Jackson who have reached out to the city, but to this date, the city has not reached out to neither one of us that I know of. I know they haven't reached out to me to help with this pothole crisis. And the equipment that we have, both companies have a total of 4 pieces of equipment, and each truck can possibly do 10 to 20 potholes a day. That's about 300 potholes a week that we could do. We could really knock a dent in these potholes within a month's time. But again, no one has reached out and called the African American companies here with the capacity and the equipment to do the job.
And we're going to fix that. I mean, we're going to stay here and fight for this city and fight for the Black community and fight for economically empowerment in the business community. I mean, this is our passion. This is what we do. This is why we get up every day to go out and find opportunities and then try to move somebody else along to try to help as many people as we can. Those in business and those that are just needing help. Marcus, I know you do a lot outside of your business venture.
Absolutely. Yeah, we do a lot of community involvement, with the children and everything. We just wrapped up our projects. We had a series of about 4 or 5 different things we did for JPS as they, entered back to school. But again, businesses can't do all these things if you're not getting opportunities. And of course, we went from a dollar amount, we weren't able to do as much as we normally do, but we did do something. But you got to circulate the dollar in the community in order for us to put it back in the community.
And so we've advocated for a long time now that there needs to be a contract with Black America, and every elected official needs to sign it. As Marcus say, if you don't want to sign it, then we need to understand who you are and how you got there. But we need a contract with Black America, much like Newt Gingrich had with Republicans, with white America. And that worked extremely well for them. So why can't we have a contract with Black America, where the contract says, to start with, that minority participation is going to be 35 to 40% mandatory on all projects in our city? Just start right there. Mm-hmm. Shake my hand and say that 35, 40% of the contracts that are awarded will have a minority partner. Just shake my hand right there. All of my insurance business will go, or not all of it, but a large percentage of the insurance business will go to Black insurance companies. We're going to have money in Black banks. I wonder how much money does the city of Jackson have in Liberty Bank, the only Black bank that we got here. We got a Black credit union over there with Hope. I wonder how much money do we have, the city have, on deposit in these Black institutions, Marcus. And so we got to have a contract that says that this is what we're about, that all professional services contracts will be screened for African-American companies or local companies first. If we can't find it at home in our white and Black community, then we'll get outside of our metropolitan area, then we look statewide. If we can't find it statewide, we look outside of the state. But when I do, it's going to be understood that when you come in here to do this work, 35, 40% of that work going to be done by Black firms.
Exactly.
And this is the contract that we got to have with Black leaders. Preachers, you're spending a lot of money. Each and every Sunday, you collect a lot of money from 98% Black people. You take that money down to the white business banking establishment and put it on deposit. And Black business people can't get a startup loan from that same institution. They cannot do it, Marcus. We got to change the way we do things in Mississippi, folk. Not for just the good of black folk, but we last. We last as a state. I don't want to be last as a state.
And we're here to break it down just like that. I think that's been a huge issue, but we're here to change that. We're here to break it all the way down, just like Socrates just did. You know, the dollar needs to circulate. If it circulates, we won't have to worry about bus being without air. You know, we will have our own dollars to do the low hanging things that we're being embarrassed about daily that we're not doing.
And so you got to help us out here, good white people. We need your help. Marcus said there are good white folk out here. We need your help. We understand that when Jackson State's football games are played here in Mississippi, that the hotels are full. The hotel, you can't get a hotel in Jackson, Mississippi. The restaurants are full. The streets are so congested until you can't even drive down Woodrow Wilson when the games are played. But yet, no economic opportunity back in the black business community because we don't own no hotels. We don't own no restaurants. We don't own those kinds of things because we don't have startup money and the capital necessary to do it in the first place. And secondly, then our leaders are not mandated that we do that. Whoever is cleaning up the stadium after the game, whoever has that contract, the president of Jackson State University, whoever is cleaning up the stadium after the game needs to be a black firm.
Well, I can attest, I had it for 2 years.
Well, do you have it now?
Don't have it now, but it was a good one.
You need to get it back.
I would love to have it back.
We can't let white folk pick up our trash.
Right.
You know, we can do that. We can pressure wash and clean the stadium and do the seats. We got to have a summit to say, what is it out here that our folk can do? And then we got to make sure that they get an opportunity to do that.
Exactly.
Marcus.
Exactly.
That's all we're doing. We're not out here bashing white folk. White folk do what white folks do. And that's what they do, is to try to make sure they have everything for themselves.
And we're not even bashing our African-American delegation. All we're doing is crying out, letting you all know that we're here to help. We got to make some change. And if you don't know, here are the numbers. Here are the numbers to show what we're talking about is real, and we're not just making it up. These are real numbers. So all we're here to do is try to help create change. Socrates mentioned a little while ago, we do have some good Caucasian people. The gentlemen who have been on this show, Mr. Ricky Cole and Oscar Miss Kelly, and the ones that will be coming in the near future, we thank them. We know that there's some good people and who would love to see diversity in this state to move this state forward.
Because I saw where Mr. Gibson made a disparaging comment about a young lady that was of the Muslim faith. And the next day I saw they had a press conference with white folk and black folk, all of the Muslims were on their TV saying, no, that's wrong. That's wrong. So when I tell you that black folk get less than 1% of state purchases for goods and services, there is no press conference.
Right.
There is no white folk and black folk coming to the mic and saying that's wrong. And until we fix what's broken, and the economy is what's broken for black folk, and the economy is what's broken for Mississippi. That's why it's on the bottom. Until we fix that and come together, nothing good can happen to the state of Mississippi. Exactly. Marcus, we have used all our time. The engineer is signaling to me. Your closing comments.
Well, you know, again, we come every week to bring you facts and stats on what's really going on in the state of Mississippi. And not to say it in a bad way or being sarcastic, based on the numbers, Mississippi is still burning.
Wow.
Mississippi is still burning, and we got to change that. And in order to change that, we got to do it together. That's all I have to say this evening.
Let's put the fire out, y'all. Y'all stay tuned. We'll be back next week.
Good night.
Good night.